1 Corinthians 11:26. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup. A lot of people believe that this is a slam dunk for the communion. However, I believe that people like Andrew McGowan and others have strongly shown, given ample evidence, that the idea of breaking bread and drinking a cup as the elements of the Lord's Supper were not solidified until well into the 3rd, if not the 4th century. So in the 1st century, then, what is to break bread and drink a cup? And I have argued in my work that to break bread simply means to eat a meal. And it is McGowan and others have shown that the communion was not taken as two elements, but was a meal. And the cup is the ceremonial aspect of it. And so when we talk about eat this bread and drink this cup, it's a ceremonial meal. And I have argued that it is the Passover. So when Yeshua says, do this in remembrance of me, and he has broken bread and he has, take this cup, he's talking about the ceremonial aspects of the Passover and the meal that is eaten within the Passover. It's not the elements of communion, because the elements of communion didn't come around until hundreds of years later. So there is a chronological misorder here. And then the next verse that Unashamed of Jesus brings up, and I'm not saying that this is Unashamed of Jesus' view. I don't know, but this is the standard response that I often get. Unashamed of Jesus then quotes Acts 2:46. Which says, so continuing daily in one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart. Oftentimes, this is referred to as, or this is seen as a communion. It's not a communion. This is them eating together. Once again, it was a form of worship to eat a meal together. And so what they're saying is that they are communing together, they're worshiping together, they're being seen as one ecclesia. This has nothing to do with communion or with the Eucharist. And one of the ways that we know that is in Acts 27. In Acts 27, Paul and a bunch of heathens and a bunch of prisoners, they're on the boat. And they all break bread together. So and this has been, when I was doing my Acts work, this was one of the biggest problems that the proponents of a early Eucharist had. And what they say is, well, okay, sometimes it can mean break it like having a meal, but other times but most of the time it means having communion. So in Acts 27, it just means that they had a meal. Or there was one commentator, I believe, that said, well, Paul converted all of them.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that you're right. There could be an element of there's something going on in the diaspora. There's something going on with the Corinth church. There could be the aspect of maybe he's saying every year when you do this.
Right. That's right.
But to see this as a institution of the Eucharist or an institution of communion, I think is horribly anachronistic. People are reading later tradition back into the 1st century. We've hit hard on Judaism in the past couple of shows, and the idea of reading the Mishnah and the Talmud back into the 1st century. But guess what? The church does it too. And this is probably the biggest culprit right here, is attempting to read the Eucharistic tradition of later centuries back into the 1st century. It's not there. It's not there traditionally, and it's not there in the text. It's only there if you see it in the light of later texts and later tradition. That's the only time. Will there be another future Passover? Scott asks. I mean, this is one of the things that a lot of people are surprised about me. I've had numerous calls, even recently. I mean, even in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've had people call and talk about the second Exodus, and that they believe the second Exodus is going to happen in the end times. Whether or not that might be the case, in other words, there is an exodus of people to Israel or to Jerusalem or whatever, from the nations, I don't know. But I believe that the second Exodus happened on the cross. And this is what we are supposed to be celebrating each year at Passover. And so, do I believe in communion? Do I believe in what is commonly termed as the Eucharist? Yes, I believe it is the ceremonial aspects and the meal aspect of the Passover. Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.